host Lloyd Shoemaker with Coach Grasso.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this edition, watching this edition of the Coaches Show. I'm the guy who does most of the talking here, but I can't talk today for some reason. Anyway, I'm Lloyd Shoemaker, and beside me is the star of the program, Coach Grasso, boys head basketball coach here at Piqua High School. Coach, one heck of a win last night over Butler at the SAC. Went down in the first game of the season by 23 points or something like that to them here at home. And you came out there last night, and I don't know if the players, the boys, were expecting you to get as emotional as you did in that first couple of minutes. But after that second three from that corner uncontested, you literally came apart. I mean, you were dancing out there.
We just mentioned, we were talking beforehand here that I had a feeling about this game that we've been playing well in our last few games. And being that Butler beat us, it was actually by 28 in the first game. And also they were coming off a victory and a last-second buzzer beater against Tip City, who's kind of a rival for them. I had a sense that this was going to be a really good opportunity for us, and we couldn't let it slip away early in the game. Now, the shots that the kids made from Vandalia to start the game were frustrating, but I was really upset that we practiced specifically for both of the last 2 days on faking a pass to make a pass and getting open properly against pressure. And we didn't execute it. We had a couple of careless turnovers, a one-handed pass, and threw it into traffic. And that's really what made me kind of lose it a little bit, because when you practice something and you see it happen in practice and then we go revert back to what we did before that, so all things considered, I wanted to send a message to the team that, hey, we're not. If we're going to do it the old way, it's going to happen the same way it happened the first time. If we change and do it the way that we've been practicing and the way we've been playing in the last 5 or 6 games, we're going to have a chance to win. So
it just so happened that three went through the hoop and you came apart because, as you say, you were more disgusted about the way the boys were playing when they had the ball or are supposed to have the ball.
Right, exactly.
And we've had a lot of those turnovers and bad passes and not getting the ball when it's on the floor and stuff like that. Things that this time of the season, it shouldn't be happening as much.
Exactly. So I needed to send a message to the team, and I think that might have been 1 minute into the game.
Yeah, it wasn't far in there.
And after that, they responded well to that. So some people or kids or teams will shy away when things don't go their way, but we showed our mettle last night that we really responded, and by the end of the first quarter we were up, I think, a couple buckets. So
yeah, you were up 19-18 at the end of the first, and then you were 32 to 27 going in at halftime, and then they came back and got real close to us, and we'll talk about the second half here in just a little bit. One of the things that we've noticed about your team so far is Mr. Seaver. Mr. Seaver didn't start a few games there, the last few games, and you brought him in off the bench, and the young guy did a great job against Troy. He's got that quickness about him that's deceptive. He doesn't look like he's going to be that quick, but boy, when he gets that first step on a defender, especially like we were talking about before we went on the air, coming in from the right side, he's left-handed, and he goes up to that basket, and the defender's going to come out and stop his right hand, and he just goes inside and puts it up right underneath the basket.
Yeah, that's the advantage of being a lefty. That's what myself being a lefty, I've felt that over the years. But generally the kids the defenders will naturally feel to go to the right side, and when you're a left-handed player, it gives you a little bit of an advantage. For Devin specifically, no one in our program has worked harder over the last 2 years to develop his game, and it's still growing. There's some things that he's working on right now that I work with him on daily, and I'm really pleased to see him blossoming and growing because it's really helping the team. So
he hustles all the time.
100%.
He doesn't walk off the court.
Right.
He doesn't walk down the bench patting hands.
Yep.
He trots. And I asked him after the game, I said, do you run at home all the time? Like, Dad said, it sounds like it when I'm downstairs.
Yeah.
But he just has done a great job. And he ended up, I think, with a total of 9 points last night. He had one guy in double figures, and that was Drayshawn had 10. Everybody else 9, 8, 6, 9, 9.
And Keegan Patton had a coming out game where he had 12 last night too. So that was
and I was going to get to that. Off your bench, you brought in two guys who scored, and they scored 17 points between them. Him and Lewis. And Butler had 4 or 5 guys come off, and they only scored 10 points off the bench.
Yeah, it was a big help for us. So to see that guys coming off and providing something, and Jarrell, another one who in the previous game had a little bit of a bad stretch where he got a technical and it hurt the team, and he had to sit out and watch in the second half. And we had a good heart-to-heart over the course of the weekend with and he did a outstanding job responding there, played his best game easily, because the bottom line is, we're not the biggest team in the world, but someone like a Jarrell who's 6'1" and 260 pounds can go in there and throw it around and clear some space. So, and then especially when he can provide a couple buckets, and that it really makes a difference. So,
well, you should. I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there at the end of the game when offensively we had the ball and he started towards the basket and he was wide open for a layup, and you called timeout. You should have seen the expression on his face. It was like, oh my gosh, I was just getting ready to score, and he walks over towards you with his mouth open, just looking at you, Yeah. And but he has done a great job. Now, you mentioned the second half of that Troy game with the technical. Was he out because of you or because of the technical?
Oh, he was out for a coach's decision. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a teachable moment for him to learn, and in general, Jarrell's an exceptional athlete, as we know. Was an all-conference. Or is an all-conference football player and heading into his senior year, and has an opportunity to continue on beyond high school as an athlete. So these lessons that he can learn now in basketball and will help him on the football field, but more importantly in life. Things don't always go the way that you want. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. And if a referee calls a foul that you don't like, or the other team chirps at you and you come at him aggressively, from a basketball standpoint, there's something to be said, but more importantly, it's how are you responding, because that's something that's going to happen later on. Things aren't always going to go your way. So it's a life lesson for him more than anything else.
I thought it was kind of funny because he had mentioned to me prior to the game that he had one called during the tournament. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of laughed about it. And I thought after that got called on him in the Troy game. Mm-hmm. First of all, when you go into a game like that with Troy, where you've got that kind of a rivalry, the officials are going to try to get control as quickly as possible. So you sneer at one of them in a game like that, you're going to get teed up, and they're going to let you know who's running the ball game. And they did a good job of bringing everybody together at halftime and talking about it and getting it settled down. And it was a much better ball game in the second half from the physicality standpoint.
They did, absolutely.
And but you're right. It's necessary for him, any athlete, to learn when to control yourself.
Absolutely.
I played basketball, and there were times when I got upset. I can only remember one time that I actually went after an official, and fortunately I got stopped by the 2 big forwards on our team. But it was just one of those times where I just lost it. But it happens. But you're teaching them right. You're talking about the bad passes and losing the ball, one-hand shot, pushing shots, coming up the floor and stuff like that. The pressure last night from them on the press was pretty strong. Sometimes they had 4 guys trying to stop that ball coming up the floor. And I noticed that we still have that little bit of a problem. I've noticed it more in the freshman and the JV games. We seem to be still having those fundamental problems of getting their passes right. There was a situation last night in one of the games where we had one player tried 2 behind the back bounce passes on a fast break. That doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And I just, what are we doing to try to get that?
Believe me, all of our coaching staff is on that 100% of the time. So in the varsity and JV practices specifically, anytime that you make a careless pass or a turnover or a one-handed pass that gets deflected or goes out of bounds, there's some sort of physical consequence. So run up and back, or 5 push-ups, or it's just to instill in them that it's if it's a team game where there's a turnover, then the entire team runs. So it's not just one person. It's that suffers. It's the whole entire team, because in games when that happens, that's it makes our entire group suffer. So
when you start getting at this level, freshman, JV, varsity, the one thing that I hate to see anybody do is that push pass. It does, with the physicality. There's so much pressure out there anymore. There's just no room for that push pass.
No room. Agree. So we're continuing to work and improve upon it. So
it was good to see Mr. Hill in uniform last night. I wasn't surprised he didn't get in. I talked to him before the Troy game, and he said he was going to the doctor this past Monday. By the way, this is Wednesday, the 15th that we're doing this. And he was going to the doctor and hoped to get released to get back in uniform. And he didn't get in last night. I suppose that was purpose. After the game, he said he was hoping he'd get to play against Sydney.
So we're gonna get him moving. He came in yesterday before the game and did some physical activity and get running up and down the court and working up a sweat. So he's just got to continue to strengthen that.
A little bit out of condition.
And so he's got a couple good days of practice here, and we'll see how it goes. But definitely looking forward to having him back for the home stretch here.
Mr. Iverson, what is it about him with 3 seconds to go in a close ball game where he decides to foul somebody?
I think he really wants to do what's best for the team.
Of course he does.
And sometimes, and specifically in those situations, both times that's happened where we've had the lead and it's been late in the game and he's been the free throw shooter and he's missed the free throw and ran in to get the ball. So he wants to help the team and he's upset at himself because he missed a free throw.
Right.
And it's just going to be something that we continue to, we'll watch it on the film today as part of practice, and it's a lesson for him about the game that, hey, the best thing to do really for your team, I know that you're upset that you missed, but let's get back there and stop them from scoring instead of giving them an opportunity to score for free.
You got to know where you are in the game, whether you're up or you're down, whether you need to foul or not. If you look at each of those, and you'll notice it on the film, in both of those situations, there's only two people in that frame, him and the guy with the ball. Everybody else is gone.
Right.
But bless his heart, like you say, he's trying like crazy. He hit one from, you can't say it was downtown last night. It was on the other side of downtown.
It was deep, yeah, for sure. And he has that capability to shoot it from deep. It's a little bit of his baseball pinpoint accuracy. But yeah, he can shoot it from back there. Some of them make you want to pull whatever remaining hair out of your head you have left. But he hits them at a decent clip. And we as a team and me as a coach specifically, I try to. I want them to take the ones that are good ones, not just any one that comes.
Right.
Because anybody could shoot from there at any given time. But if you get one that's off penetration and you get a good pass where you've squared your body up and everything, we've seen he can hit them. So.
Yeah. Well, there were opportunities last night, like you say, but he backed off of them because the defender came out all of a sudden, or he wasn't square to the basket. One of the two.
So we're learning the right times to shoot, and I think that goes for the whole team too. I mean, you can see. The progress in how we're scoring now compared to the first game of the season. We just because we've had two Butler games now, to lose by 28 and only score 43 points, and then to win last night by 3 shows the progress of the team as a whole. But then specifically, we're scoring the ball more, which puts pressure on the other team. So. Our percentages are going up, and we're taking better shots and making shots. So.
Well, you're shooting 61% from the free throw line, 41% on total field goals, and you're hitting about 32% on your threes. You've got 4 guys on your team, I think, are hitting the 70s on the free throws. That's not too bad. Overall as a team, as I said, you're only hitting 61%. That's not real good.
It's not great, but it's a lot better than it was. Yeah. And all of those have come up tremendously since the first few games of the season. We were in total field goal percentage, we were in the high 20s to low 30s, which is miserable. And we were in the low 20s to high teens at the 3-point line. And we have a team who can shoot a little bit. So now we're at 32%, which it would be an average to a little bit above average high school percentage. To get to 35% would be really exceptional. And then the free throw percentage, like you said, is not great, but it's improved. And actually, if you look at high school basketball as a whole, and I believe probably if you even look into college, it's an epidemic. Kids just don't practice them as much as they used to. And as a coach, you have so much time for practice that you don't give a whole lot of time to stand around and shoot free throws. We do them when we're in drills and we have certain opportunities after we run hard. Let's shoot them in a game scenario and things like that. But at the end of the day, kids have to practice them on their own.
You know, at the beginning of the season, we talked about the talent this year.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the fact, I believe, that you've got a lot of basketball players who are athletes, and not just athletes who also play basketball.
Right.
And one thing that I have noticed that even though you've got a starting five, and it may vary one man or here or there, but even when you're putting in your substitutes, whether it's one or two at a time, there's not much difference. In that play.
And even, you know, last night I think we only went too deep on the bench, and that's just for what the game called for. But, you know, we have a few juniors who play in the JV games, and specifically it's because we want to get them to continue to play. And it's not that we wouldn't feel comfortable putting them in the varsity games. It's just to keep them fresh and keep them in the competitive spirit. And then when the time comes, you know, they're in there. I think like Dylan Cheney, for example, came into the Fairborn game in the first quarter after playing 3 quarters in the JV and had 8 points in the first quarter. You know, so that's the type of thing where, and then you know we have Bryson Roberts, who's a freshman, playing the JV point guard, and a few of those other guys that are playing the JV games. That if you know, we might take a small step down if we had foul trouble or something different, but it wouldn't be huge. It wouldn't be falling off a cliff. So.
Right. Well, I remember talking to somebody prior to the season, and I think I remember who it was, but they were asking me about what I thought about the team, and I said, you know, I think he's got a group of kids this year that I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he substituted 5 at a time, depending upon the game and what was needed there just to get the kids in the ball game. And I said, you're not going to see much of a drop off now, unless it happens to be the big guys. Now, the big guys, you got Shrub, you got Ventura, you've got Riley Hill, and you got Lewis. Those are basically your big guys in there. And last night, I think you started Ventura and Shrub. And that kid can jump.
Yeah.
Is he ever going to dunk it? I mean, he just tries so hard to dunk it.
He had a great opportunity in the last game, I think maybe the Fairborn game, and he kind of had a steal and a clear path, and he kind of like fumbled over his ankle and fell and slipped. So when the time comes, he'll get one.
Yeah, he'll get it. That's for sure. Well, you know, as far as your team is concerned on the averages, you don't have anybody in double figures. You've got Roberts at 9.4. You got Darner at 8.8. Garrett's 9.6. Severs at 5.5, and Ventura's 8.8. And then you got Keegan and Lewis in at 5.2 and 3.5. So they can't just shut down one person out there.
And when Riley comes back, he's another, you know, 8 to 9 point guy. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's who we are. Our team motto this year is family over everything. It's a family atmosphere, and when everybody does their part, we see great things can happen. So we don't need to rely on one guy or 2 guys. It's everybody chips in and plays their role.
Do you guys ever stop and get something to eat after a ball game, after a win?
You know, it's just there's a lot of stuff that goes into doing all that with the buses and all that. So generally, we just kind of head home.
We used to do that. I was thinking about that last night when we were leaving there. And I said, you know, I remember coming back into Lima. I went to Bath High School on the north side, and we'd be up playing Findlay or somebody like that and coming back. We always stopped someplace and got something.
Most of the time, I know the boys will go somewhere together and eat after the games. But yeah, when we do the buses and all that stuff, there's a lot of paperwork.
A lot of coordination going on here. Yeah, you don't want somebody to end up with food poisoning.
Yeah, right. You never know.
Now with the football team with Coach Nees, he goes up to Lima, he wins. It's Cupid time.
No, I don't know what that is, but I guess
that's a hamburger up there.
Okay.
And he's from Lima, and so am I, and that's a place to go. And
all
that's
right.
where they always
next
win.
time I'm heading that direction.
Yeah, okay. Let's take a look at the standings in the Miami side of the league. Troy 6-3 with Tip 6-3. And then Butler 5-5, year 4 and 6, and then Greenville's 0 and 10 so far. And down on the Valley side, Sydney's 9 and 1, Stebbins 8 and 2, West Carrollton 8 and 2, Xenia's 2 and 8, and Fairborn is 1 and 9. And you've got a bunch of those guys to play yet, don't you?
Yes. Well, now at this point we have given our new Miami Valley League Conference. We're playing everybody twice, and that only allows us for 4 non-conference games, and we've already played 3 of them. So we got one more coming up. Next Tuesday, we're at Miamisburg, who's a good program. I believe they're about 9 and 4 at this point, and then the rest of the season we're in conference, so we're grinding through.
Well, Sydney took care of Fairborn last night, 85-49, and you got them this Friday night, so that's going to be a packed house, close quarters. Speaking of quarters, what is wrong with Fairborn and Stebbins as far as their facilities? I mean, you set up in the upper deck, you can't see a
well, I know
floor.
From the time many years ago when I did student teaching, I did it at Fairborn Baker, which is a middle school, and that's where they play their high school games. And it's actually set up in the way that a shelter would be because it's near the Air Force Base. So it's an old facility. It's a neat gym, but yeah, when you sit up there, it's difficult to see. And I know Stebbins is similar. It's just kind of that's the model of place that they have, but they're older facilities, and I guess.
And the people that sit on the floor are right behind you. I
right.
mean, they're right.
Oh
on
yeah,
you.
right on top of you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Sydney, as I said, 85 over 49 over Fairborn. Stebbins 59 to Tip City, 56. That was a pretty good ball game. Troy 55, Greenville 27, and West Carrollton 88, and Xenia 68. What are you expecting to do against Sydney that didn't work last time?
Well, again, I think we're a different team from the beginning of the season, beginning with the kind of addition to the lineup of Drayshawn Roberts, who provides us with another point guard, a ball handler, a ball mover.
Yes.
That really helps in those pressing situations. At the beginning, against Butler and Sydney, our first 2 games, as a freshman, you want to kind of get them in the lineup and get them working and get some experience. And then, about halfway through the season, we decided it was time to turn them loose and let him experience the varsity game, and he's responded really well. So between him and Cameron Darner, who's had now a season and a half as a varsity point guard, we have kind of 2 point guards on the floor almost at all times, which, we still turn it over a little too much for my liking, but we're getting better. So, as opposed to the first 2 games where we had in the 20s, now we're down in the mid-teens, which is more acceptable. So.
Yeah, you're averaging. I got that here someplace. You're averaging 15.8 turnovers a game.
It's a little high, but again, like I said, many of those come from that percentage, or that average comes from having a few games where they were astronomically high, and we've had some who were below 10. So, and that's a style of play and things like that. But we're getting better. So
that's the important thing, and you can certainly tell it if you're sitting in the stands and watching the team. They have progressed, and they're looking better. And actually, there's times when Seaver's out there, Drayshawn's out there, and Darner's out there. You've got 3 point guards actually. Probably and then you've got Shrub out there also who can do that. But not as effectively. He's not as quick as the other, but you'd rather have him down inside.
Well, he can get a couple of solid dribbles and pick the ball up and make sure it gets to where it needs to go. So yeah, we count on him and pretty much everybody to take a couple of good dribbles and get the ball to where it needs to go, which is normally back to the guards to make the decisions. And like you said, get the big guys down by the bucket and get Iverson spotted up at his 27-foot mark.
Well, after Miamisburg, then you've got Tip City coming in here, and then you go over to Xenia.
Yeah.
And then West Carrollton comes here, and then you go to Stebbins, and then you've got Greenville here, Fairborn here, and then, of course, Troy is the final game of the season.
Yep.
Where do you think you're going to be when you're all done? You were 5 and 8 last year at this time, finished up 7 and 16. You've already got 6 wins. Where do you see yourself?
Well, I would. The biggest thing that I've focused on with this team, and we've focused on as a group, is just really one game at a time. So we're looking at the schedule right now. We're at 2 really good programs on the road, And then Tip City poses a really tough challenge for us, being a team that has a lot of tall and long players, whereas we're a little bit shorter and smaller. So before we start thinking about all those other ones, we're just going to focus on trying to do the best we can with Sydney, get some preparation today. In general, I'd say our goal for our program is to always make it to double-digit wins. So if we can, figure out a way to get a couple here, we're playing pretty well, I believe. We're 5-1 in our last 6.
Mm-hmm.
So things are really looking up, and if we play the way we've been playing the last few games, we'll have a great shot in many of them. So
we're going to have the tournament draw coming up here in a few weeks, and of course, as you said early in the season, we got to go Division I again. So hopefully, we'll get somewhat of a decent draw there, and maybe pick up a win or two in the tournament.
Yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting year in the Dayton area Division I. In the past few years, we've had some really high-end players that went on to play in Division I college. This year, none of the schools have guys like that. There of course will be some players in different schools that go on, but it's kind of wide open. Even a Centerville took some lumps early in the year. I think they're close to 500. Springfield has lost a few players, and they're still trying to find their way, who are the traditional leaders of the D1, and Wayne. They look pretty strong, but they don't have any real high-end players. They've had guys that go on to play in the league even. So it'll be an interesting year this year all the way around in that draw.
Well, we certainly wish you luck and wish the team luck, and stay healthy. You don't have any flu or anything going through the team?
We're okay so far.
All right, good enough. We'll keep taking that vitamin C.
That'll
certainly help. Coach, thanks again for your time, and we'll see you Saturday or Friday night up at Sydney in a very important game in our league this coming Friday night. Okay, we want to thank you for watching, and we'll be back in touch with you here just after the tournament draw. Actually, Coach, I'd like to talk to you then, and then find out what we're going to be doing as far as the tournament's concerned. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.